Here's a list of things that I managed to do on my first playthrough of Dimraeth. I fought a giant slime and then drank its heart as a way to quench my thirst. No, seriously, you can make water out of slime corpses. I learned how to manipulate gravity for maximum AoE farming. I managed to craft and set up a camp with different working stations to make potions and equipment, and then convinced the finest Therian baddie to come join me. This is the damage I was doing at the start of the game, and this is the damage I was doing by the end of my playthrough. And I managed to theorycraft and make a build combining set bonuses from 2 different armor sets, choosing stats and leveling the talent tree to become a certified pyromaniac. All of this in just a demo? Dimraeth is a handcrafted pixel art action RPG with a focus on class fantasy, character progression, and build specialization. You create a character by choosing different combinations of race and class, and that determines your potential to specialize in different aspects of their class fantasy. For example, in my case, I played as the Elemental Ranger, and I was able to choose from using a sword, fire magic, a bow, or ice magic. You can likely play as a hybrid if you get creative enough. The biggest cherry on top is that this game is multiplayer, and you can play with up to 8 people. And yes, the multiplayer is available right now in the demo! While those are the main features, there are other gameplay elements that make Dimraeth quite compelling to me, like the hunger and thirst system, base building, crafting, gathering, having pets, NPC companions, tier set bonuses, level scaling quests, gear honing... Wait, is that a romance gauge I see there? I really don't think I have any female viewers. But if some of you are there, I just know you tried to recreate whatever freak show happens in this book. And you know what? I won't judge you. I am no better than any of you. At a first glance, it might look like Dimraeth is just another RPG of the bunch. Like, what makes this game stand out from other ARPGs that are already on the market? And to answer that question, I think we have to look at what are the core elements of an RPG and then examine how is Dimraeth treating those in order to stand out. And oh boy, they're doing a great job! We can argue all day about the core elements of RPGs, but for the sake of this video, these are the ones that I will be covering. Starting with the progression systems, one of the defining and most important elements of RPGs is that they have gamified character development through progression systems. Becoming stronger, getting better weapons, unlocking more powerful spells, all of these things are in a way a representation of how your character evolves throughout the story. Dimraeth has done some fantastic stuff with its progression systems. Leveling up in this game is similar to some of the Souls games, where your level is determined not by reaching a certain experience milestone, but by how many points you have invested into your different stats. Each time you do a quest or kill an enemy, you get a certain amount of experience points. However, you don't just level up by accumulating enough experience. You do so once you actually spend those points into the different stats. Now, this doesn't mean that leveling up is like inconsequential. It's not just a number representing your invested experience. Each time you level up, you get 2 skill points on your skill tree. And while some people might think this resembles Path of Exile, I think it is much more similar to the skill system in Crosscode. By using these skill points to unlock different nodes on the skill tree, you'll gain passive bonuses and stats, and after you branch out far enough, you can even unlock new active skills, which also have more variations if you specialize in them. While the stat system determines things like your health, energy, mana, encumbrance, and damage, the skill tree is what will flesh out your playstyle, since each skill tree has 4 different specializations that you can pursue. I was quite happy going all in the fire tree on my character, but nothing stops you from trying hybrid builds where you combine sword and bow skills, or maybe sword and fire. A lot of the feel of class fantasy will come from this system, and it really looks like no 2 people with the same class will play it the same way. The skill tree is also something that you can reset at any time, which is just great. Not only this opens the possibility of exploring a class in different ways, it also allows for a good level of adaptability. What if the enemy has fire resistance? Well, might as well play with ice magic. What if they're zoning me out of melee range? Let's change my sword skills to bow skills. According to the devs, they really want this game to be about skill expression and adaptability. And with these 2 systems, they are already accomplishing that goal. While I did see a reset option for skills, I didn't see that for stats, which I'm not really bothered by. I think a big part of character progression, kind of like in actual tabletop RPGs like D&D, is that you also put a lot of thought into planning your growth. Having the foresight to properly distribute your stats is a skill that you have to develop at some point in these games, and there's nothing more satisfying than watching how something you visualized early in the game starts to take shape later on. The other reason why choosing your stats carefully is really important is thanks to the spellbook system. And I love it! Spellbooks are consumable items that you can use to learn new spells or skills. However, every spell has a stat requirement in order to unlock it. I really like this design choice because it complements character customization by being another layer to consider, or sometimes it completely defines your choices. And the best part? Spellbooks are not only bought, they are discoverable and craftable. I just need to take a moment to praise this aspect of the game. Compared to other base building games where crafting is a core element that is usually fully revealed to the player, Dimraeth is not too handholdy, in the sense that it usually won't tell you exactly how to make each craftable item. You have to figure that out on your own. Now, if you pay attention or just know where to look, you can make this process a lot easier. A lot of reagents and materials have a segment that says something like used to craft A and B item. It doesn't tell you every item that you can make with it, but at least it throws you a bone. This doesn't only apply to spellbooks, but seemingly to every craftable item in the game. That said, let's assume that you're completely clueless or just can't be bothered with this system. The devs were quite smart about it because they made scrolls that drop from different enemies or bought on item shops, and these allow you to unlock the recipes for the different craftable items, which means that you can either buy your spellbooks on the shop, find a scroll for it, or play around with the crafting system and discover them on your own. I love this! The possibility to get ahead of the curve or completely branch out into new ways of skill expression through this design, it's such a cool way to explore your character progression. Even when I was playing a fire mage, I managed to discover a lot of water and nature spells through the crafting system, spells that were not available anywhere else. So good! While there are main quests, there's also this bulletin board with side quests that you can do to grind some experience and loot. Usually, these quests are carbon copies of quests that you do in the story, but what I really like about this system is that they added a deed level to these quests. In short, the more you repeat a quest, the more difficult it becomes and the better loot it drops. And yeah, you can get to the point where a quest starts to get way above your pay grade. This looks like a very smart way to keep content replayable and challenging as you progress. A very good feature indeed. Oh god, please, I won't do it again, I promise! And last but not least, the gearing system. I was a bit taken aback to find out that there's no weapon slot in your equipment, but this quickly became irrelevant. The different races already have their defined weapons as part of their fantasy, so the human, for example, will always have a sword and a bow, and the Minotaur fights with his axe or by using shockwave-based attacks. So for equipment slots, you mostly have armor and accessories, you know, like chest, belt, ring, necklaces, stuff like that. What I really liked, however, is that armor has set bonuses. Any game with set bonuses instantly gets my attention. When armor not only has base stats, but it also has additional effects if you equip pieces of the same category, that allows for so much customization. For example, in my case, I was combining pieces from the Convergence set and the Pyre set. The pieces that have Convergence on their name would give me a percentage magic damage increase and mana regeneration for having 2 and 3 pieces respectively. And the Pyre set gave me increased fire damage and a general magic damage increase with the 2-piece bonus. So as you can see, this is where you can go crazy with the mix and match of different armor sets bonuses. It adds yet another layer of depth to your build customization that I really enjoy. On top of that, you can upgrade armor pieces with the smithy to increase and unlock even more stats out of each armor piece, which only makes this system even better. So there you have it. As you can see, Dimraeth is laser focused on making set building and skill expression the main protagonists of the game, which is already an extremely solid foundation for an RPG like this. Every RPG needs a story. Whether it's a good or a bad one, it has to be there as part of the core elements of the game. Otherwise, what's the point on taking the role of the different characters if you can't go through the hero's journey? Immersion, character development, world building, storytelling are all to be expected in an RPG. Even though we were off to a great start with the progression systems, Dimraeth doesn't have the best story. Now granted, I've only seen the demo and there's no way to know what's in store for us in the future. But from what I can see, the fantasy tropes are more or less generic. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is not necessarily a bad thing. A generic setting can still be serviceable for what you're trying to accomplish with your game. But, you know, I grew up with Chrono Trigger and Zelda Ocarina of Time. My bar is pretty high. What I will praise though is the attention to detail in terms of world building. Even when the fantasy tropes and the story elements are not particularly innovative, I can still see the care and dedication behind every race, town, environment, and mythos. And sometimes that's all you need. Let's keep in mind that the main focus of Dimraeth is in its combat and skill expression. So it's not fair to expect a Witcher or Baldur's Gate 3 level of storytelling, because it doesn't need it. I will say, however, that I really enjoy how some characters talk about other people or places like they really know them. Sometimes they tell you about feats that other characters have accomplished, or they mention aspects of their culture that they can no longer preserve, either by choice or misfortune. The characters really do live and breathe in the world of Myrkea, and as long as you can feel that their lives are actually shaped by what happens around them, you can still be immersed and drawn to their stories. So yeah, if the game's protagonists are the combat and skill expression, the story in Dimraeth serves as a great supporting character. This is one of my favorite categories. While I usually think that gameplay is king, nothing draws me more than flashy or unique classes or characters. So remember how I said that when you create your character, you get to choose your race and class, right? Well, in games like World of Warcraft, choosing your race is just an excuse to go ERP on Moonguard because god damn it, there's almost no impact to what race and class you decide to combine in that game. And I know some classic Andy will be saying like, actually, you can get a cheaper centipede, whatever. In Dimraeth, this choice has a very important impact on your experience because your class fantasy is defined by the combination of your race and your class. For example, playing a Minotaur Brawler is called Horned Vanguard, but playing a Minotaur Mage is called Earthshaker. The names are not just for show, they also give you a specific passive bonus depending on your choice. To give you an example, Earthshaker gains bonus spell damage for each point of strength invested into your stat. But here's the thing, remember how I said that your skill tree has 4 wings to branch out on? Well, these wings are composed of mainly 2 categories, your race skill tree and your class skill tree. So if I'm playing the Earthshaker class, that is Minotaur plus Mage, I get 2 wings of the skill tree to improve my racial skills and 2 wings of the skill tree to improve my mage skills. How cool is that? This means that no 2 races will play the same even if they are the same class. A human mage can never learn all of the same skills of a Minotaur mage and vice versa. This is such a great design decision because it really allows for so much skill expression that is also represented by your class fantasy, with a great variety too, from warrior mages to frost archers to earthquaking fighters, and let me remind you, the demo only has 2 races and 2 classes. But the full game will feature 8 races and 6 classes! I can't wait to see what other cool combinations I can make. And this is another aspect that I think plays very well into the world building of the game. It kind of makes me think like, okay, so magic is not a discipline exclusive to a few races. But the cultural differences between each race will inevitably create very different types of mages, despite having similar spells at their disposal. And this is reflected in their names too, like Human plus Mage is called Elemental Ranger, and Minotaur plus Mage is called Earthshaker. Now, one of the difficult things about class fantasy though is that whatever fantasy that you're going for should be represented in gameplay as well. You know, archers have marksman skills, mages are squishy and mana dependent, warriors are tanky and better in melee, stuff like that. With that in mind, I think this is the perfect segue to talk about the combat. Since RPGs have stories, and stories inevitably have conflict, a very common way to resolve that conflict is through combat. The combat in this game is not too complex. You have some Souls-like elements like a stamina bar that is consumed by normal attacks, physical skills, dodging and blocking, a mana bar called concentration for spells, and a health bar. Consumables are either to heal or to deal damage as a throwable item, and some of the foods that you eat to maintain your hunger gauge filled can also provide different combat buffs. Skills, however, are used kinda like in a MOBA. You have a limited amount of skill slots that you can adjust with whatever spells and skills of your preference, which in turn can help you flesh out your class fantasy even more. And I think this amount of skill slots is very adequate. It took me 10 years to realize that this is not good design. You can have a lot of complexity in your combat without the need for so many buttons. And hell, you get really creative, you can have complexity in spades, even with the limitations on skill slots. All that aside, I didn't see a lot of complexity in the enemies of the game. Most enemies have 1 or 2 attacks. Sometimes they have combo attacks like the wolf or the big goblin dudes. It's only until you start facing the really big enemies that you see more variety in the attack patterns. Like, these strengths can sometimes pull you in and then do an AoE slam. Also, I'm not too sure about this, but I'm almost certain that elemental tables will be a thing. Like, you do less fire damage to a water elemental and more fire damage to a wood elemental. Stuff like that is always appreciated as yet another layer of gameplay. Even then, it might be a bit early to make a full judgment of the difficulty and complexity of the enemies, since you can only fight against very basic monsters in the demo. We'll have to see how things play out on the full release. I have to give massive props to the developers for making the game have so many different types of controller settings. You can play this with keyboard and mouse using WASD, you can play it with right-click movement like in a MOBA, and you can play this with a controller. Nothing is more satisfying to me than a game that allows you to customize the controls to your preferred experience. If you've seen Mario 64 speedruns, you know some people have unhinged controller preferences. Giving players UI and controller customization options is one of my favorite features to have. I very rarely feel comfortable with the default layout of a game. And there you have it. This was a review of Dimraeth based solely on what I saw on the demo. I think it has a lot of potential, especially if you like to play with friends or maybe just enjoy the simplicity of character progression in RPGs. Well, this is the end of the review. It is not the end of the video. I'm honestly delusional for thinking that the devs will ever take the time to watch this, but in the slim chance that they do, I have some suggestions. Please, please, please make the armor stats transferable between armor pieces, and I mean only the base stats, not the bonuses. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to have your perfect min-max plus 10 full slotted max option fully enchanted armor piece, and there's this one stat line that is completely useless to the class that you're playing. No Rest for the Wicked had the same problem on release too. You basically had to play gacha RNG with the armor pieces until you got something close to what you wanted, and there was no room for determinism or any guarantee to fully complete your build. Today they've changed it so that you can transfer stats from one armor piece to another, and while the item that allows you to do this is rather scarce, it massively improves the set building experience. I know you might not like this idea, and it is super understandable if you want to make it a difficult to access or limited resource, but please add this to the game. Everyone will thank you. Please thank you. I know that some people like inventory management, but I hate it! Please make it so that there's a way to have the crafting menu detect all the items you have stored in your base. I hate having to organize the chests in my base and remember the exact place I left every item. My ADHD won't even allow me to do that in real life! No way I was going to be able to do it in games like these. Going back and forth between your chests and the crafting stations because you keep forgetting each reagent is so annoying. If you want, make it so you can unlock this feature with a quest later on in the game, or an item, I don't know, something. I will be forever grateful if you do. I get the feeling that you're probably already cooking so hard with the boss fights in this game, but I thought this might serve as inspiration. Some of the best raid bosses I've ever seen in my life can be found in the game Lost Ark. Today, I hate that game, but I'll never be that disingenuous as to say that their raids and combat are bad. In fact, they are some of the best in the industry. Fights like Argos, Valtan, Vikas, Kakul Seidon, and the Kayengil Dungeon are some of the highest quality of PvE content I've played in all of my gaming years. And maybe you don't even want to take the game in this direction, but still, I think you can get some really cool ideas from these bosses. I don't think your game really needs more progression systems, but if you're really feeling it, can you add class-specific bonuses? Like, for example, a set bonus gives spell damage, but on top of that, if you're playing the Elemental Ranger class, it will make spells hit harder the further away you are from your target. I don't know, little class-specific bonuses that can deepen the scaling of each class. I really like it when games do this because it feels tailor-made for the class you play. Even when other classes can benefit from the same armor piece, only you get to draw its full potential. Just think about it, just an idea. And this one really is a Hail Mary, but can you add ultimates? And I'm not talking like really complicated stuff, just something like in Wizard of Legend or Crosscode. You know, in Wizard of Legend you have your 4 basic spells, but you can assign one of them as your signature spell. And so as you fight, you fill up your signature gauge, and once it is full, the next time you cast your signature spell, it will come off as an ultimate instead of a normal spell. Or you can do what Crosscode did, where landing attacks charges an energy bar, and once you have enough energy, you can hold the button of your regular skills to charge them up to level 2, level 3, and then ultimate, which as you can see is vastly superior to its regular form. Simplest way to go about this, you make one ultimate for every class, and then you make one keybind for the ultimate. Nothing else can go there. And so when you reach a certain level, you unlock your ultimate, and it's the same every time for every class. I don't think the game actually needs this. I think the combat is pretty good already, but there's something so satisfying about having that domain expansion moment in games, where you can basically just break the game even if for a second. I don't know, just my 2 cents. And now, this is the actual end of the video. If you're still watching, I want to thank you for your time, and I really hope that I got you at least a little bit excited about this game. You can get the demo for free right now on Steam, and the devs have said that there's no end date planned for it, but it will be available at least until next Summerfest 2026. They do want to keep it open until they reach early access though, which is estimated to release on fall of this year. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this game in the comments. This is like my first actual game recommendation, and I really want to know if I managed to convince some of you. As always, my name is Sun, and until next time.